What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So if you didn't see last week's video, we started working on the MB Miata, getting the motor all tore out. Got her set up on a little dolly here in preparation for the new high compression 1.8 to get dropped in. And I also got all the seals and gaskets I ordered from this. So shout out to Miata, got it super quick. So I got the front main seal, exhaust gasket, and a valve cover gasket to get slapped on that motor. And then I should get all this back together, but currently waiting for my 3D printer to finish up the little print for the front main seal tool, so make it super easy to swap that in and out. And then I can actually start swapping some of the parts over from this thing. I know I need like the coil pack and a couple little things from this motor, so it should be pretty quick so I can actually get that all back together. But in the meantime, I'm gonna start working on the engine bay, get some of this all cleaned up, because I wasn't really planning on pressure washing this and cleaning it all, but after seeing how dirty this thing was, I really want to get this thing cleaned up. So I'm going to start pulling some of these reservoirs out, getting some of this wiring pulled out to the side so I can actually get the pressure washer in there and see how dirty this thing is, because there is wasp nests everywhere. And as far as I know, this thing sat for 2 or 3 years. So this thing really needs a good cleanup. And in the meantime, I started ordering up some of these parts. I got the stainless steel clutch line on the way, got some solid motor mounts, and I ended up picking up an engine plate and engine risers. Those are pretty much going to take the longest to get here. I'm not really sure how long they're going to take. So in the meantime, I got to at least get the engine bay cleaned up, get the motor ready to get dropped in. So once those parts get here, get them in, and actually start installing the motor, get that all set up. And hopefully this thing should be a pretty quick little swap. So I'm going to start working on getting the engine bay cleaned out, get a lot of this stuff kind of pushed out of the way, and then get some of this junk out of here. I might start cleaning up some of these brackets or possibly paint them like wrinkle black, because a lot of the engine is wrinkle black, so it'll kind of match the engine bay pretty well. So I'm gonna get to work on that, and this should be pretty quick, so I'm gonna do one of these. So just like that, got the whole engine bay pretty much tore down as far as I need. There's still a few things like the ground wire and like the clutch slave. I gotta pull like the whole hard line and rubber line out, since I bought the whole stainless steel line that goes from this master down to the slave. So I'll probably wait till I get that line in, or at least before the motor gets in, so then it'll make it a little bit easier to install. But got a lot of the brackets out, got the fuel pressure regulator out, and it really exposed how much dirt is hiding back here. It's like a wasp nest, kind of hiding over here. Some dirt over there, I couldn't tell you what it is. Found some rat poop sitting over here, found some more wasp nests. So really ready to get this thing cleaned up, and it's really gonna have a nice transformation. But I know it's gonna take me a little bit to get it off the stands, put some wheels on it, and get it pushed outside. And it's starting to get pretty late now, the sun's gonna be going down. So rather wait till tomorrow. I actually have a full day to work on this thing, make sure it's 100% clean, and then I should start working on getting like the wiring harness all taped up, make it look nice, start notching the subframes, because you got to notch it whenever you raise the motors on these. Makes it a little bit easier, at least show you a few things that I'm going to do to clean up this engine bay. But in the meantime, I'm going to start working on the engine. Finally got that piece printed up for the crank seal, so that just slips right on the crank here, and then you just put the nut through and it seats the crank seal as deep as it needs to be, so it's a perfect little tool. And since I got all that, I can start working on that. For anyone that's wondering what's done to this motor, it's got a 2001 NB Miata bottom end, and then with a shimmed head gasket. I'm not really too sure what that does, but it went from a 9.5 to 1 compression to a 10.9 to 1 compression. So it really bumped up the compression a good bit. It's got a ported intake manifold, and I was told it has a bigger cam. I'm not really sure what cam it has in it, maybe like a drop-in, or it could have like the little Mazda Miata cam swap that you can do. Gives you like 5 to 10 horsepower, but pretty cool. Hey, I'll take it. And the whole reason I really bought this motor came with a ACT clutch with a lightweight flywheel, so this thing should rev to the moon. Came with a coolant reroute kit with this nice hard line that goes all the way to the front with the temperature sensor in there, EGR block offs, and then they also ended up blocking out the heater core on the back there, and then they welded up on the front here, and then the little port on the front. So everything's all good. I don't really mind not running heat in this car, since this thing's got a leaky heater core, so it kind of makes it easier on my end, so I don't have to really worry about doing all that. Got a 4-to-1 header. I know I'm gonna have to take that off when I put it in the car, but it's just on there from now to kind of keep everything all sealed up. But I really do want to get this thing cleaned up as well, because this thing is just filthy with oil and grease everywhere. So at the same time, I'm pressure washing that. I'm gonna push this out and get that pressure washed as well. So probably just get like the crank seal on, get like the crank gear on, get it all timed up, and then I can at least push it outside, seal up some of these holes, get it all cleaned up. So should be a pretty quick little putting the engine back together. And I think maybe I'm gonna pull off the valve cover as well, just because I know this thing's leaking. Get that sealed up. Don't have to worry about doing that later. So I'm gonna knock that out in the meantime, and then probably catch you guys tomorrow when I start actually pressure washing the engine bay. So just my luck, not even 30 minutes later after that last clip, got the front main seal installed, and I actually installed a brand new timing gear because I had it sitting on a shelf over there. So got that installed and was just spinning everything around, making sure the timing was in check on the cams and the crank. Everything looked good, and then I was inspecting the timing belt. Noticed a nice big chunk out of her, nice hole. You can literally see my finger through it, but I'm glad I caught that now because that could have been very bad once the motor's in the car and I was beating on it. But now I have to order up a timing belt for this thing, so I'll wait to do the valve cover on that because kind of need to do the timing belt and valve cover at the same time since it kind of goes up and in there. So I'll wait to do that, but in the meantime, at least she's ready to get cleaned up and pressure washed with the car. So now I'll actually see you guys tomorrow when I actually start pressure washing the car and the engine, and we'll get her all cleaned up. All right, so I'm the only one here, so let's see how this goes. Hopefully this thing will just roll off the wood and straight out the garage, and I can use the e-brake to stop at the driveway. So I guess we'll see what happens. Let's go. So I got the engine bay all cleaned up, and I also ended up cleaning up the engine as well. I just forgot to film that because my GoPro battery ended up dying on me. So I got the car pushed back in the garage, got it back on some stands, so get a little bit better look at it in the lighting, and this thing came out amazing. I'm pretty stoked on it. For just a simple like spraying some degreaser around and hitting it with the pressure washer a few times and kind of wipe the rag in some of the really rough areas. It came out pretty dang good. I didn't know that was zinc down there, so that came out really nice. A lot of these lines cleaned up pretty good. AC and power steering came out pretty nice because those things are really greasy. Got all the wasp nets and all that out of here, so now I can actually start working on the engine bay, cleaning that all up. And then the engine came out pretty dang good as well. Pretty happy with that. The one thing is I did end up hitting it a little too hard on the valve cover and chipping the paint, so I might end up painting that like kind of to match the color of the car. I might end up wrapping this thing eventually because I do want to change the color on it. The silver works, but it needs a new fender, so I'm probably gonna get a new fender and then need to change the color of it anyway, so I might as well wrap the whole car. So I kind of want to do something cool, kind of match the valve cover, or at least paint inside the letters to match. So I might wait on that, get a new valve cover since this thing's already wrinkled black and it'll kind of be a pain to strip. But other than that, everything else came out pretty good. Got a lot of the oil off the front of the motor, so that is pretty much ready to get the new timing belt. I'm probably gonna pick that up tomorrow. I am gonna actually pick up some, what is it, wrinkle black paint as well, because I do want to paint up a lot of the brackets. I kind of just got them all tucked over there, but I want to paint up some of the brackets, like this one holding the fuse box and the relays, and some just the little things all around just to kind of match it all together, tie it in. Then I'm also gonna wrap the wiring harness as well and test the tape just to clean it up real nice. But back of the motor as well, everything's all cleaned up. Now I wanted to paint the motor mounts and the AC compressor bracket before I mount those up. Just get that knocked out of the way so everything's all matching, everything's all looking good, nice and fresh for a nice fresh clean engine bay. So that'll be nice. So I think I'm gonna start working on the engine harness just because getting a little bit later so I can just knock this out, sit here with some music, jam out, and wrap this all up. And then tomorrow I'll pick up the wrinkle black paint and a new timing belt for this. So get this all back together so I can finally stop looking at all these parts on here. I want to get this thing back together, get it ready to drop in this car, especially once I get the skid plate and the engine mounted. Should be pretty quick. I do want to start notching the subframe because if you notice, the passenger side has a little slot up here, but on the driver's side, it's just 2 holes on line. So you just slot those. It makes it a little bit easier to raise the engine straight up instead of it kind of being a little crooked from that one side being stuck at one point. So it makes it a little bit easier and it gives you all the room to kind of lift the engine pretty high up. So especially if I keep this thing a stance car, I'm gonna want the oil pan as high as possible. So I'm gonna start working on the engine harness, so get that all cleaned up and actually get this bay finished up. What's going on, guys? So it's the next day now. I put a little clip of me wrapping the wiring harness in here, and I literally spent like 2.5 hours in here last night taping up the harness and ended up running out of tape. This is kind of all I had left, and I knew I still had this whole side of the harness to go. But like, just look at this kind of ugly mess compared to this side I got finished up. This is looking so much better. It looks brand new at this point. I didn't really wrap this just because that's gonna be under the bumper. It don't really matter. But got this whole side of the harness done. Did all the way to the fuse box down to about the transmission area. Got the whole alternator and starter wiring. Did the whole engine harness, so that's all cleaned up. Especially you're gonna see that right on top. That should look really good. But since I ran out of tape, I ended up just stopping. But luckily my buddy Tark put him on it, so he had a couple rolls for me I could borrow from him, so I'll replace him on that. But I ended up picking up a new timing belt for this motor, so finally get this thing fucking back together. Trust me, I know I'm so tired of saying that and so tired of looking at it tore apart. I'm ready to get this thing back together and actually get it ready for the car to get dropped in. I picked up some fuel line because I want to figure out something with the fuel pressure regulator. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Got some wrinkle black paint, so I'm going to start painting up some of these brackets. And in the meantime, I'm going to start wrapping up that harness, get that all finished up while this is drying up. And then I think once it gets a little bit later, once the sun goes down, those pieces are painted up, get the harness kind of situated back in the engine bay, get that all figured out, and then I can pull off the valve cover, get the timing belt back on, and get that thing back together. So I'll catch you guys in a little bit once I get some of this work done, and I'll kind of update on that. So I've been working away on the Miata, getting a lot of the engine bay pretty much finished up, and I actually almost finished up the engine finally, so thank God on that. But I just want to show you guys something before I seal up the valve cover real quick. But I'll give you guys a little progress update on the engine bay. Got all the wiring harness wrapped up, finished up this side. I ended up painting some of the brackets wrinkle black, so I got that bracket there, that one there. There's a little one hiding down there, and then the one that holds a little diagnostic port. And then once those are dried up, I put the wiring harness back in. So both sides are set up permanently where they're gonna be. So those are all good to go. Just gotta get the engine harness in once the engine's in, of course. But the engine bay is pretty much finished up as far as I can get right now. I know I got a notification for the engine mount to be here sometime later this week and the stainless steel clutch line. So I'm still waiting on the skid plate. I really want the skid plate main thing because that I can need to drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of the subframe for, and I really don't feel like doing it underneath the car. I'd rather just be able to put a couple pilot holes and drill from the top, make it so much easier. So hopefully that'll come in soon, get that all knocked out. But got the engine pretty much finished up finally, got the valve cover off still, just pretty much ready to throw some RTV on it, throw the new gasket on, and seal this baby up. As you can tell, this thing does have a cam in it. You can kind of tell this one's at least newer than that one. But I don't see any writing on it. The only thing I see is a little BP. Where is it? Right there, yeah. A little BP on there, which I'm thinking it's the engine code, BP. So I'm thinking that this thing just has the intake exhaust kind of swap cam upgrade you can do on these cars. It gives you like 10-15 horsepower, which is pretty cool. It's a simple upgrade. And then looking down in here, I also noticed some ARP head studs. So that's super cool. I'm stoked on that. So this thing's completely ready to go. Got the new timing belt on it. Where is it? You guys got to see this old one. So found that right at the top of the cam gears. Once I pulled the valve cover off, that was just sitting on top, so that was nice. And then now you can really see that nice big old hole in her. So thank God I saw that and replaced it now. So got the new Gates timing belt on there. Everything spun up, got it all torqued down. Got the front covers on, got the water pump, got pretty much everything all set up from here. I did wrinkle black AC compressor bracket, so that's all cleaned up, ready to go. So once I get the valve cover on here, this motor should be pretty much ready. I just got a couple of little things like coil pack or the coil wires in. I think I want to build a mount for this little pipe for the coolant reroute, but a couple little things. But this thing should pretty much be ready to drop in the car, and we should go from there. But once we get the motor mounts in, that's really when I can drop the motor in the car. So they should be here later this week, and I can actually show you my little method of putting motor mounts in these cars, because I know Miatas, they can be kind of a pain to slip in there and get them locked in there. And I also still need to notch the subframe, so I'll probably knock that out tomorrow, just because that should probably take me 10 minutes. Knock it out pretty quick, and once the motor mount comes in, I'll show you that. And then we'll also knock out the fuel pressure regulator and do all that once the motor's in the car. So probably catch you guys later or tomorrow and see what happens. So I'm basically at a standstill right now in the MB Miata. I pretty much got as far as I can in the engine bay and on the engine itself. Just waiting on those couple parts that come in, like the skid plate, engine mounts, engine risers, and the stainless steel clutch line. So I can at least get some of those in so I can get the motor back in at least. I'm gonna definitely need the motor mounts, of course. But tossed in a new throttle bearing, cleaned that up, re-greased it, so that's all good there. Ended up notching out the subframe on the driver's side, so just like the passenger side here. Got the little slot going up. Ended up doing it on the same on the driver's side, just kind of marked the little holes and with a line, and then hit it with the grinder. So those lined up perfectly. You can test it out with the old mount, so everything works there. On the motor, got a lot of the cosmetics kind of done, painted up a lot of things, and then kind of test fitting a few things, making sure everything fits. Painted up the coolant pipe there, kind of got it test fitted up right now. Painted up the coil pack, the throttle cable bracket, fuel pressure regulator, and this little bracket that holds this little sensor. I'm not even sure what it does, but this is all looking pretty good. Even made up a little bracket that holds the coolant hose there with a little zip tie, so I can kind of loosen up that zip tie and kind of angle this wherever I need to. But I'll definitely have to take off the coil pack and this hose to get the motor in, so that'll be fun trying to do that all in the car. So we'll see how that goes. But for the fuel pressure regulator, if you guys know on NB Miatas, in this little corner right here where this little feed line is coming out from the frame, it has this hose. So this stupid little disconnect hose has 3-inch little gap, but it does all this stupid stuff and then has all these little brackets holding it on there. So it's kind of annoying to mess with, and then those little disconnects are a pain to use. So for this, I ended up mounting up the fuel pressure regulator right here. For anyone who wants to do this as well, these bolt holes pretty much almost lined up exactly with this bracket here. So kind of just had to oval out the fuel pressure regulator just a hair, and those bolt holes just lined up perfectly. Able to bolt it on with those same bolts, and it kind of matched up. I'm just hoping I can get to this sensor here, but I'm looking at the harness over here, and this plug doesn't really look too big, so I really think I can snake that in there. If anything, I can kind of unbolt it and then plug it in, bolt it all back together, and it should fit up pretty well. But stock fuel feed matches right up with the pressure regulator, and it kind of tucks it real nice against the intake manifold without anything touching, so I like that. And then for the feed line coming from the frame over there, I'm gonna do some 5/16 fuel line. I picked up some fuel line. I know it's probably not the right way to do it, but I'm gonna slip some fuel line over the quick disconnect and throw a couple clamps on it, because I really think I can get it pushed down all the way past this little ridge here, and then put the clamp right here. So it should stay nice and tight and shouldn't slip off or have any issues with it leaking. But I'll kind of be the test dummy and see what happens. I might be dumb for it, but at the same time, I'm looking at it like, if this ever has any issues, I can just run to a parts store, pick up some fuel line, and not have old fiasco trying to find the little tool to disconnect it and find that specialty line and do all that. So I'm trying to make this thing as simple as possible. So I'm hoping that'll work out pretty good. But other than that, I'm at a standstill with parts. I can't do anything without the motor mounts to really get the engine in the car. Skid plate I would like to do before putting the engine in the car, but I can do it without it. I I want to get the stainless steel clutch line, I can do that with the engine in the car. And then the engine risers I'm going to need with the motor mounts, just so I can at least get the motor 100% in place and then bolt everything up before I end up doing the motor mounts without the engine risers, having to move a bunch of stuff around, doing all that. So I'd rather wait, get a lot of the parts in. So I think that's going to be the end of today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed just kind of cleaning up the engine bay, getting a lot of this all finished up, wrapping up the harness, making it all look clean, and then matching up a lot of the paint on the engine, getting the engine done. Finally, stop looking at this thing all tore apart and me talking about it. And we can finally get this thing dropped in the car soon. Once I get all the parts in, I'm hoping they'll be here by the end of this week, maybe next week. So we'll see. If it ends up being the next video, then you guys know they came in quick. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hope you like, comment, subscribe, and peace out.